These are tears that has accompanied me through this journey. These are tears of satisfaction, Mr. President. These are tears of joy, passion. These are tears just to establish how proud I am to stand before my people. I said to stand before my people.
Hey everybody, welcome to HBCU Game Day, and do we have some news today? This might be the biggest news ever in the history of HBCU Game Day. We have our assembled cast: Wally Pitt, Stephen J. Gaither, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, Vaughn Wilson, and myself, Tali Carr. But the one name that we're going to talk about for the next few minutes is Deion Sanders, the new head football coach at Jackson State University. Let's start with the guy who probably has known Deion to some extent more than the rest of us. That's Vaughn Wilson. Vaughn, you were in Tallahassee. Deion was at Tallahassee. He was at Florida State / FAMU. You have a little bit of history with Deion, right?
Yeah, Deion's history in Tallahassee at FAMU is a storied one. His first wife was from FAMU. Deion has been a big name in Tallahassee and a big name in sports. And it's no surprise that Jackson State made this decision. Deion has been a great athlete himself, but he turned himself into a coach and did a great job in high school. He did a great job and is continuing to do a great job with his sons. But he has turned into the amazing mentor that we probably did not think he had in him. I saw Deion last about a year ago here at a coach's clinic with Corey Fuller, a former teammate of his, and hearing the words that he told those high schoolers still sits with me today, and hopefully before the end of this broadcast I can get some of that in. But he has the wisdom that is needed of an HBCU coach.
Stephen J. Gaither, you've been on this story from the time it was a rumor, from the time Deion, just conveniently picked up that college degree that he had been missing out on. And all those pieces now start to come together. Your initial reaction to what maybe was the world's worst kept secret to Deion Sanders, head coach at Jackson State.
Yeah, I say you sit here today, it's pretty amazing, to see where Deion Sanders is now the official head coach of Jackson State University. About a couple of months ago, just a little bit over a month ago, all of a sudden he popped out with at Talladega College with a degree, and it was a great story. It did very well on the website, so it was dope to get a chance to get some Deion content on HBCU Game Day. As a guy who grew up watching him, best at the 49ers, but then also with the Cowboys. And so it was like, okay, this is a nice story. He went to Talladega, he went to PWI, Tallahassee, Florida State, he did all of that. And he got his degree at the HBCU. That's pretty dope. And then right after that, a couple of days later, Jackson State fires their coach. And so immediately after that, the rumors began circulating. There were denials from folks, that were in the know saying that, did he not? Did he even meet with them? And, things kind of quieted down a little bit, simmered a little bit. They were keeping it alive on message boards. And then lo and behold, Thursday becomes revealed that, he is still a candidate for the job. And, got to do a little bit of maneuvering to get him, some issues there, just trying to get the deal done. But as we sit here today, it's done. And it's pretty amazing that Primetime, one of the best defensive players in NFL history, and arguably the greatest defensive back in NFL history, is now headed to Jackson State, a place where they couldn't have got him in the 1980s when he was coming in as a football player by that point. But now they're being the school to give him a chance to fulfill his dream of being a head football coach.
I believe that God let me in, not man. Let me say it real slow. I believe that God let me in, not man, because man didn't believe that I was coming. W.C. Gordon, Jackson State, Lynn Barney, Robert Brazil, Eddie Payton, late tradition here that I believe that we can reestablish.
I can't wait to hear Wally Pitt's take, but we're going to save that for we're going to save the best for last. Let's kick it down to Houston, Texas now. Dr. Kenyatta Cavill. Doc, we always talk to you about business and big business. Business cannot get any bigger than right now in Jackson, Mississippi, with Deion Sanders now the head coach. Financially, exposure, marketing, what does this mean for the Tigers?
For the Tigers, it is huge. You can't quite quantify this, and we could bring in the economists and I could work with him and we could actually find a finite number to give you some frameworks of what that looks like. But just in terms of the general vernacular, it is a challenge just to talk about the light bulb and the spotlight that will be on Jackson State and therefore the SWAC, which we keep talking about getting all these wins. Take this back. When we look at this historically, we have Dr. Harry Edwards that talks about this wave of athletes, particularly when we talk about waves in this current environment in terms of protests, if you would, right? Well, there's this wave in there that was during a time with Deion Sanders, Michael Jordan, if you would, Bo Jackson, that were transcending in a different way in terms of the marketability of African-American or Black athletes. And they were doing it from a global perspective. Well, Deion, outside of Michael Jordan, right, particularly in a sport of football and baseball, that were able to transcend what we had seen before in regards to, for the most part, was only allowed by the quarterback position in football, specifically from a Eurocentric thought, meaning a white quarterback. He was able to do this from a cornerback position, wide receiver, punt returner, special teams, and really blaze trails in cutting over between two sports, remember, of what he was able to do in football as well as baseball. He became the quintessential multi-sport phenomenon in regards to that time when he was playing in the World Series for the Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Falcons. And then he was able to parlay that into San Francisco, as Stephen Gaither talked about, and enter into the framework where he won a Super Bowl championship. And then his brand matched up with what a lot of people talk about as one of the biggest brands literally in the world. People will argue this, but at least we can say one of them, right? The Dallas Cowboys. And this was during the time where Jerry Jones was creating this phenomenon where he was partnering with Nike and Pepsi and Ford in terms of how they turned that into at the time, the largest deal that any player had signed for in the world. Think about that. In the world. That was Deion Sanders. Did so much that it literally changed the league, where the league said, Jerry Jones, you can't do that in regards to how you brand. You have to look at differently the contracts you sign. So Deion, in fact, changed the phenomenon of the athlete. We bring it forward back to Jackson State. That's what you get. His connection was with Nike and now Under Armour, all those business platforms from being on NFL Network. He left that and now he is into another deal. And it starts to add up of what was going on. And then Steve Gaither broke that great news in regards to him getting his his degree, which we understand at the university level to become a head coach is significant and something that, for the most part, you have to have at least a checkoff box to get in that. He got that done. All of a sudden, Jackson State lets go of the coach, and it starts to add up. And now what do we have is the business phenomenon of Deion, Neon, Primetime Sanders at Jackson State, as they say, I love. Man, match made in heaven, and then all the other schools get to deal with the ramifications of that in terms of the Southwestern Athletic Conference SWAC, 100 years plus one now coming up on it. Amazing.
I believe the men that I sat and looked in the eyes on a Zoom call yesterday can win SWAC championships. I believe that Sonic Boom is the best thing since peanut butter. I believe that our commitment to excellence academically can continue. I believe that our student enrollment can increase. I believe that the crime in this community can cease. I believe that these young men that we're raising is going to be pillars in the community, not only professional football players, but professionals. I believe that the coaching staff that we assemble that has a cumulative of 84 years of professional playing and coaching experience together combined can teach, reach, educate, inform, and can lead these kids to excellence. I'm foolish enough to believe, do you believe?
The I love Wally Pitt. The I love. Do you love this move, Wally Pitt?
It's levels to it for me. On a purely surface fan level, it's dope. Like having Deion Sanders come in as a head coach at Jackson State. I mean, when you look at it just on the surface, it's a chef's kiss. It's beautiful. It's perfect. But when you look at the nuance of it, there were some things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The degree, for one, I don't really have a problem with him getting the degree. But when you get a fast track degree in an effort to become a head coach at a prime HBCU, now Jackson State, to me, that's one of the top jobs. You got the best attendance in the land. That's the data tells you that. You got one of the top bands in the land in a really, really good, about to be super conference. To me, that's not a stepping stone job. You know what I mean? That's a banner job. And if this wasn't Deion Sanders, we just got done talking about Steve Nash for days and days and days about how he just kind of came in off name recognition and took a job from Jock Vaughn. Well, think about all of the guys who are, grinding in the HBCU coaching ranks, your T.C. Taylors. Even, a bunch of different guys who are dedicated and they don't have a chance to get that shot. And that shot was given off of name recognition. And to me, if we weren't talking about Deion Sanders, God forbid, let's say this is a white guy. What if Matt Ryan decided, hey, I'm going to do this and coach at HBCU? It might be like a hold up, not so fast situation. So for me, when you look in the nuance of it, generally speaking, like I feel a way about already rich, famous people using their richness and fame to get what they want, which is what happened here. Whether you love Deion or not, like that's what happened. But at the same time, like I told somebody, we talking about Deion freaking Sanders. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can't negate who he is. But for me, the when you get into the nuance of it, some of it is kind of like, I don't know. And now you're just looking at a situation where, what if this is just a stepping stone? What if he comes in and is only there to use Jackson State for his own gain, as opposed to give something back? Now, from what Vaughn just said, I didn't know that. For me, that kind of made me feel a little bit better, because maybe he is coming into this with a mission to not just take from Jackson State, but give. I'm with that. But I think we'd all be remiss if we didn't recognize exactly what this is. It's whatever nepotism is for famous people. That's what this is. You know what I mean? And just because we love the famous person doesn't mean that we should just negate that. And he's a Barstool guy. And Barstool is they are a pseudo-racist platform at its best. And I'll give them pseudo as a disclaimer there, because I don't know him like that. But to be linked in with Barstool, to get a fast track degree from an HBCU, when in my opinion, Florida State the one that owe him that degree. Like he the one that made millions and millions and millions of dollars before the Ed O'Bannon deal, when they were selling that number 2 Florida State jersey like water. You know what I mean? He shouldn't have had to go to Talladega to get a degree, no matter whether he purchased it with money, fame, or he actually did the coursework. That's irrelevant to me. You know what I mean? Like Florida State's the one that owes Deion Sanders, not Talladega. And I'm not judging Deion, and I'm not judging Talladega. I'm just looking at what it is. You know what I mean? And for me, like that rubs me the wrong way. Like Florida State owed him that degree. You know what I mean? Like, and And when you look at like a TC Taylor, what does this tell a guy like a TC Taylor or like a Coach Courtney Court at A&T or a Coach Sean Gibbs? Like, you gonna grind all this time to have a famous person come take a job that's yours? Shoot, you might as well go make 100 bands as a strength coordinating coach at a PWI. If you're not gonna move up, you might as well at least go get the money that's out there for you to get. You know what I mean? We're talking about a job that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, that's a life-changing amount of money for a young, hungry, grinding in the ranks HBCU coach. You know what I mean? That's a must be the money video shoot for Deion. No shade. No shade.
Hey,
You know what I mean? So that's just where I'm at with it. They're calling me a hater. I'm just trying to give a nuanced perspective. But I mean, it's gonna be lit either way. So
This is why I love Waleed. Tell him why you're mad, son. Tell him why you're mad.
I believe that a stadium that gets 30,000, which is wonderful for HBCUs, but it holds 60,000. I believe that we can fill it. I love the way you tailgate. I love the tradition, but I believe that you go now, get your butt in the stadium, and watch this. I believe that all the people that you know with a child that has a D1 potential or a Power 5 potential that can now choose Jackson State. I believe that our coaching staff is going to go into every hood, every barbershop, every soul joint, every nook and cranny, every grandmother's house, recruit these dogs because we have 99 players that has been drafted into the NFL, but I believe up under my watch we're going to have 100.
I really appreciate that critique from Wally Pipp in a lot of ways, and I think it's something that we certainly have to explore. But with that said, we also have to take in the entire culture, which includes the business side of it, which you alluded to, which is, what does that look like? At Texas Southern University, I worked around Texas Southern University taking similar type of extenuating with leaps, if you would, with Mike Davis. Johnny Jones is now the basketball coach. Cynthia Cooper on the women's side, and she's been there twice, right? They did the same similar move in football. So it's really starting to understand that culture in regards to what that looks like, which gets back to how do you deal with Deion Sanders. So one thing we're not privy to is what that conversation was like between Ashley Robinson, Deion Sanders, and the president in terms of setting that expectation, setting the groundwork of what is Jackson State University. What are the heights that they seek to go to? What are their limitations in regards to the financial framework of this deal and of athletics, more importantly, the football budget? How does that look? What is Deion willing to do? Come to the table with? Like you said, there are some concerns probably with Barstool, but how does that look in terms of Barstool maybe understanding that they need to reframe their typology in regards to where they're going with the organization? Particularly now Deion's inside. Does he have the ability to negotiate that change with that organization? Under Armour. What is Under Armour willing to do in regards to increasing their platform? So when we talk about culture, we do have to understand that we are in a capitalistic society, whether we like it or not, and we still should have those critiques on that conversation in and of itself. But this is a global capitalistic society. So you have to even know how to tackle it, even if you're coming from a liberationist mindset. How do you deal with the framework that you are in a society and institutions that govern that framework in terms of capitalism driving that train and that fan base, along with the culture that will have its ups and downs, mood swings from this and that. But to get to the crux of your question, it really talks about what was that conversation like between those key stakeholders involved in terms of setting the expectation for all involved of where this is going to go. And that ultimately is going to decide how well this will work in connection with the revenue you're associating that could be brought to Jackson State University. And I will take a bigger picture of this, a perspective, if you would. Therefore, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and even to some degree, the HBCU phenomenon. Last thing I will leave you with, we were in the middle of two pandemics, right? COVID-19 and racism, and how they have collided during this period with sports and athletics and what is taken up. A lot of that is a shift in moving space in regards to what that looks like. So that's where it's important to start looking at strategies of how do you review your institution and individuals within that institution to move the conversation and the dialogue forward and not being stopped in the moment.
So I hope y'all ready. I hope you're prepared. And I hope you're able. Because I have a commitment to excellence in each and everything I do. And I did not leave my 100 acres and a mule to come here for no bullshit. We gonna win. We gonna look good while we win. We gonna have a good time, Sonny Bull, while we win. And we gonna do this professionally. But I believe this is gonna be a marriage made in heaven. And I cannot wait to get started. Do you believe?